Hello and welcome back to 1874. It's time for a match preview, Champions League edition, as Villa travel to Club Brugge, 5:45 UK time tomorrow. Jacob Tanswell joins me, the Athletics Aston Villa correspondent, and he will be, I was going to say jetting off, but you won't be jetting off. You'll be taking a different mode of transport to Belgium, I imagine, first thing in the morning. Just before we get into it, this show is sponsored by Luke Roper. And if you want to get 20% off everything Luke have to offer, then use the code TVV20 and you'll get 20% off. So go and treat yourself to some Luke goods if you have the finance, and you'll get 20% off if you use our code. Right then, Jacob, how are you? Should be getting an early night, really, but I've stitched you up because I've been in London all day and I need to do a preview. So I've drafted you in for a 9 o'clock preview, which probably isn't ideal for you. What time are you up in the morning?
Not really. It's not ideal at all. It's going to be a long day. We're obviously travelling on the day of the game. I'll be up at around 6, and it's going to be it's quite nice. It's not too far, is it, on the Eurostar? But it is a case of obviously being at the house all day and working. Probably 15, 16 hours. So it's going to be a long old day. But I remember Ajax last year. That was even longer, all for a 0-0. So hopefully there'll be a bit more interest and excitement in this game.
Yeah, I saw lots of Villa. Well, I've seen lots of Villa fans over in Bruges.
Yeah,
already seen a picture of Ian Taylor where he just looks very worse for wear, which is not a surprise at all. I'm sure he's being his normal affable self with all the Villa fans out there in Belgium. Gabby, of course, is out there as well, working for TalkSport. I've seen some stuff with him as well. So it's exciting time, Jacob, isn't it? Fourth game of the Champions League. Villa looking to make it 4-4, and I actually think it's quite a nice thing to have a Champions League game after Sunday. I feel it's kind of what Villa need.
Yeah, I've got a piece out tomorrow morning on that. I think Champions League has actually provided a little bit of respite, because if you take Champions League out, Villa's form has been bit of a mixed bag, hasn't it, in the last 6 games, ever since the Young Boys result, really. 1-2, drawn 3, lost 1, which is probably not top 4 form. So I think Champions League's a good salvation, I guess. I think it's what underpins the whole season, the excitement of it. And we saw with Bologna, a really good performance. It can just set the optimism back and get Villa back on a confident footing as well.
Yeah, I should just apologise for any noise that people may hear from this show. I don't know whether you could hear that, Jacob. There's some fireworks going off in the background, and one of my dogs does not like fireworks very much at all. So yes, she's barking. I don't know whether this has been picked up on the microphone. I will say, just briefly on fireworks, if I was Prime Minister, the first thing I would deal with would be to ban fireworks in the UK. That would be my first move on my manifesto.
That's actually quite a good first part of the manifesto. All I would say is,
more important things going on in the country.
I was going to say, but focus on the things that are important to you. Now, what I'd say is, being the Prime Minister is all about compromise and finding a middle ground. Maybe you say you can have one night, not starting in September and then finishing at the end of New Year's Eve or whatever. Just have one night, November 5th, and get it all out your system. I don't know about you, but I like fireworks for about 3 seconds, and then I get pretty bored afterwards.
I like fireworks of the variety of John Duran putting one in from 30 yards at Villa Park. I don't mind those fireworks. Maybe I'd let them stay, but they all have to be silent. I just think the noise is completely unnecessary, and I don't like what it does to animals. And I just get rid of them. I don't find them entertaining either. It's maybe just a me thing, but some lights in the sky and a loud bang doesn't really do it for me at all. So anyway, shouldn't be talking fireworks. Should be talking Villa's trip to Belgium. I just thought I'd let people know my disdain for fireworks. With Club Brugge, Jacob, they're second in their league at the moment. There's not too many familiar faces if you look through the squad. Obviously, Mingele is in goal. Solly's, I pronounced his name completely wrong, I'm sure that's the guy that used to play for Norwich, although we didn't see very, very much of him in the Premier League. So there's a couple of familiar faces. But what I find with these games, and I would have said this a number of times pre-Conference League games last season, is on paper you'll look at it and think, well, Villa have already done bits in the Champions League so far. They're going to Bruges. They should make it 4-4. Young Boys was a little bit of a gimme looking back.
Yeah.
This won't be like that. Teams like Club Brugge, they know their way around Europe. They're in Europe every single season. I guarantee you in a few years' time, there'll be a couple of players in this Club Brugge team that are playing for top teams in Europe. That's just the way it works. So Villa can't really go there and take anything for granted. They have to go full tilt, really, and it'll be a hard game, I think.
Yeah, I think we were speaking about Bologna before, and we said actually that the way they play is not, is quite helpful to Aston Villa, where you look at Club Brugge, they've had a bit of a rejuvenation in the last 12 to 18 months ever since Scott Parker's ill-fated reign, and they've got a lot more youth and a lot more tactically flexible players. But at the same time, you look at how they play and you think it's very stodgy. If you go through the data, I know it's only a small sample size because you're 10 games into the season, but it's a 4-2-3-1. They're very quick and vertical when they have the ball. They like to get the ball from A to B very quickly, but also at the same time, they're middling towards the lower part of the Belgian table for tackles won, pressures made in the attacking third. So what I suspect is that they're going to really condense the midfield. They know that Villa will like to play through the line centrally, and it's going to be very difficult to break them down early on. That's why the importance of an early goal is really key. But it's that type of game, like you saw in Conference League last year, against these teams that just want to spoil and don't play necessarily on the front foot all the time, where Villa can be trapped and be in one pace. And you see this year, there's a question here: are we missing Diaby with Bailey? Those type of games, you probably need a bit more pace. So I'm looking for Villa to be on that front foot and to get those 1v1 characteristics out.
Interesting. You've just mentioned Bailey there. I actually think he'll start tomorrow. Yeah. I'd be very surprised if Bailey didn't start. I'd be surprised if it wasn't Maatsen at left back. If Bailey does start on the right, would you say that then means McGinn on the left? Does McGinn sit this one out? Ramsey, perhaps? I'd expect Rodgers and Watkins to be the front two, and Tielemans and Onana to be the midfield. So I guess it is those wide positions that there's probably a debate.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if John McGinn didn't play this game. But, it's a question mark about Morgan Rodgers, isn't there? In terms of, there's a feeling that he's played a lot of games in a short space of time with the England 21s. He's getting increasing amount of knocks. Emery said in the last couple of games that he's taken him off because he's seen him fatigue visibly. I wouldn't be surprised if McGinn maybe plays behind a Watkins or Joe. But at the same time, I do think you need Leon Bailey in there. I think you need to keep playing him into form, because the issue with what Villa have got now is obviously they sold Diaby. They've got Jane and Philogene in, but I still don't think Philogene is that one that out and out pace that Leon Bailey or Diaby can be. So I think you need to play Leon Bailey into form, because if he's in form, Villa's attack and the complexion of it completely changes.
I mean, I've been driving back from London, so I haven't seen anything of the press conference. I presume you have. What was going on?
Yeah, so the absentees are Ross Barkley and Matty Cash. It's my understanding that I think Matty Cash will probably be unavailable for the Liverpool game as well. So you might have to have a decision made at right back. Do you go with Konsa at right back, or do you have an out-and-out right back in Nedeljkovic, which I think could be better against a team that's going to clog up central areas? You can actually have a proper outlet on the right. I think Emery's talked about 16 to 17 points ensuring, or pretty much ensuring, that you get into the top 8. So this is the type of game that Villa can get onto 12 points, and then they've got a few games, a bit of a buffer to make sure that they do qualify for the top 8, which is well within their reach now.
What are you thinking then? That means I'm going to assume that Konsa's going to go to right back. I can't see him throwing Nedeljkovic in for this one, if I'm being perfectly honest. You assume that then means Diego Carlos next to Pau Torres. But in my 30 seconds of prep before we came on, I typed in Club Brugge, and I did see something, I think it was the Birmingham Mail, that said something about predicting Mings will start. Is there any basis on that?
I really don't know. I'm sure. Yeah, their predictor line. I quite like the predictor line. I used to have to do it.
Run me through it. We don't often talk about rival podcasts, but
I have actually read it all, but I saw the top headline. I would be quite surprised if Mings and Powell played together. I would be one or the other. But at the same time, obviously, young boys, Bagard played as well, didn't he? So do you go back to him? I know he's kind of been forgotten about recently, but
it would feel a bit left field to suddenly pull him back in from kind of nowhere.
It is, but at the same time, I do think there's a real issue there at right back, and I just still think I'd rather have Ezri Konsa at centre back and then sort the right back issue out, rather than having two positions that are issues. Just worry about one of them. So I wouldn't be surprised if Mings plays, but the way with Pau Torres as well, and as we saw last year with Pau Torres, Emery was very reluctant to play him midweek in any game. He didn't like him playing 3 times a week because his body's, he's had injuries, pretty fragile. So I can see Mings playing that way. But I would be surprised if it was Mings and Pau.
I'd be buzzing to see Mings get his Champions League bow. Certainly deserves it. It does feel a little bit early. Since we've been talking as well, I've been starting to kind of think, will Kamara play? He obviously got 90 minutes under his belt against Palace. Maybe, with Liverpool in mind, with our form in the Champions League in mind, maybe this is one to potentially put Kamara in.
And then you can put Tillemans into number 10, and then you can give Jacob.
Oh, there you are, Jacob.
They could give Morgan Rogers even the bit of a rest for 60 odd minutes or so. I think Kamara would love to play, not only because I would love to write a piece about his recovery like I do with Mings, and
in other words, you've got a piece lined up, and it means if you plays, you get to do less work. I think that's what you're saying.
Maybe, but I'd love to see Kamara play. I thought he's been really good, and not only the start he had last week against Palace, but in this substitute appearances as well. And just having someone like Kamara can just lock it up, while you can allow the other midfielder and the pivot just to push ahead a little bit more. Maybe a Nana, for example, to crash the box. And against a team like Bruges, like you say, clog the central areas. Having someone that can just sit and allow the other one to push forward a little bit would be really, really advantageous. So, yeah, having Kamara back, I would, if he's fit to start, I would love to see him start. I think he's just a hell of a player.
It's quite bizarre, isn't it, to be sat here talking about Villa in the Champions League, but almost without being we're not being disrespectful, because we've already said it's going to be a hard game, but we are almost both kind of saying to mix it up a bit in the Champions League with Saturday against Liverpool in mind.
Yeah, but also I think it will add just a bit of freshness to how Villa play. They've been without Kamara and Mings for so long, and given that Villa aren't exactly fine fettle in the league, there's no reason to not make changes if you think it's going to make you stronger. It's not like this team start 11. Everyone knows what it is on paper, and any change will make there be a drop off. The fact is that I think Villa have got a group of players that are all vying for places in the starting lineup.
I think Watkins will start this one, not John Duran.
I'm starting to become a little bit concerned with how much Duran's playing. Actually, it's actually more versus last year.
Normally, you're really wanting him to play.
I just think Watkins just needs to get into a rhythm, and I just don't think he's having that rhythm because he's coming off in games. I know he played a lot at Tottenham and he wasn't great, but he's just coming off in games. I don't think that does a lot for a player's confidence. He's coming off 60, 70 minutes. He's not playing Champions League games. I think especially obviously he had the Palace game off as well, didn't he? I would suspect that Watkins will play ahead of Duran.
So that would be my inkling. I don't think there's any other kind of team dilemmas to discuss. We said last time Matty Cash was in the press conference, and so he'll be playing, and then he obviously didn't play. Who was in the press conference today?
It was Onana today. He's
on a bed.
He's an excellent speaker, isn't he? I think he's such a confident,
impressive character generally.
Yeah,
actually.
He really is. Yeah, he speaks with maturities beyond his age. I think he's a really, really good, interesting character. He's got a brilliant background. Obviously with his sister as well, who looks after and represents him. It's just a shame that Matty Cash is still waiting for his Champions League bow, isn't he? So
it's not happening. I don't think.
It's just a shame.
Yeah, but for the final.
Hopefully he can play some part of it. But you do wonder if people are starting to look in January now. Emery mentioned it. January is that right back issue going to come back up?
Did he reference that?
He mentioned it in the press conference last week. Yeah, he said we'll analyse in January. So I think a right back would be great, but at the same time, Matty Cash is picking up these small injuries now, isn't he? With his hamstring and his calf, these muscle injuries, and if you can get him fit, you can get him back to his best form.
It's weird because he's been pretty durable over the 4 or 5 years that he's been at Villa. It's only in recent times that the injuries have seemed to be a problem, and it's come at a pivotal time for the football club, and at a time when he's the only real natural senior right back at the club, which isn't ideal. I guess on Onana and Tillemans, they'll both want to play because it's their country.
Yeah, and it's their country, but also Ross Barkley's obviously injured, so you'd suspect that they'd play. It's just how they play with it. I would love to see Tillemans playing at number 10. I know he's been absolutely fantastic, arguably player of the season so far in a deeper position.
I don't think there's an argument about it.
No.
I think he is the player of the season.
But horses for courses, I would really like to see Tillemans playing at number 10. You saw, in the Conference League against Alkmaar, he played in that 10, and he was fantastic. That kind of was the game that turned everything around for him. So if he can get close to Watkins, and if Villa can get that early goal, like I say, I can see Villa winning quite comfortably. But I do think the longer it goes on, the more attrition it will be, and the more tense it will be, and those fine margins, Villa will become frustrated, and that's where Bruges have that chance.
Okay, then let's finish then with our hot/freezing cold takes ahead of the game. Me and Dave not on a good run with this at all. I can't remember what Dave came in with a wild shot. He said said someone was going to score from 30 yards in the Spurs game. I can't remember who it was. I think he possibly said John Duran. He said someone was going to score from 30 yards anyway in the game against Spurs, and that didn't happen. My prediction was closer. I said a defender was going to score off a set piece. Villa did score off a set piece, but it wasn't a defender. So what is your hot/freezing cold take ahead of Club Brugge?
I've got 2 hot takes. Villa are actually going to attempt a direct free kick, and they're going to score from one as well.
Oh, it's big. Is that the 2 hot takes there?
That's the 2 hot takes there. Yeah, it does frustrate me because
is that 2?
Well, they never take a direct free kick, really, do they? Even when they're very close to the goal. Well, but I think it was I can't remember the home game. It was not long ago, but Villa still tried to do his creative set play, which is absolutely fantastic. But sometimes you just think, you know what? Let's just see it whipped into that top corner, and maybe Tillemans is the guy to do it.
I think you remember that free kick against Fulham where it took us about 10 years to take it, and we just smashed it into the crowd. Kind of Luca Dean's put a few into the crowd as well so far this season. What am I going to go with? I know this is coming. You probably don't know it's coming, but I always know it's coming, and I never have anything prepared. Let's go big. I'm going to go big. You're going to like this. Okay. Ollie Watkins Champions League hat trick.
Ollie Watkins hat trick. That would be. I don't know about you, Dan, but it does feel like everyone's just forgot about Watkins. I know because obviously the early season form, and the broader public and media are saying about how great Duran is and his impact. And I just feel Watkins has not quite hit his straps yet, but he just needs that one game. I think I do feel sharpness is lacking him. He's had a lot of minutes over the last 18, 20, 24 months. I do think there's a game where you do think he will just run right and take his chances.
I mean, it's in a way a bit of a backward shout from me because at the start I was saying about this is going to be a hard game, blah blah blah, and then at the end I've said a player is going to score a hat trick, so I can only blame that on fatigue. It has been a long day in London.
You're becoming increasingly confident as every minute goes past. Before the podcast, this is going to be a difficult game, and now you're predicting Watkins is going to score a hat trick, and there'll be rotation, and everything's going to be great for Liverpool.
I think I'm a bit delirious. The fireworks seem to have stemmed though, which is nice at this hour. Definitely shouldn't be going on past 9 p.m. past the watershed, in my opinion. Right, that does us then. Wherever you've been watching, let us know your opinion on fireworks in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel with your post notifications on if you're watching via YouTube. Let's get this preview up to 500 likes. If we don't get 500 likes, Villa will not win. I'm not sure whether I did this for the Spurs game. I don't actually know if we got to 500 or not. So it could be the general watching public's fault that Villa didn't beat Spurs on Sunday if we didn't hit 500 likes. Love that we're getting some reviews on Apple Podcasts. Please keep those going and give us a 5-star review as well if you're enjoying it. Anything less than 5, I'd rather you didn't leave a review. to be honest, I keep hitting that 5-star. Oh, we'll keep hitting those 5 stars and do the same on Spotify as well. I'm not as au fait with Spotify. I don't know how that works as well, but I'm sure you can do lots of nice things for us on Spotify as well. Thank you to Jacob for joining me. Have a safe trip to Belgium tomorrow, my friend. And thank you to Luke for continuing to sponsor us as well. Don't forget that code TVV20 will get you 20% off everything that Luke have to offer. We'll be back on Thursday. Yes, we'll do a show on Thursday following Villa's Champions League outing in Belgium. So watch out for that and stay tuned to our socials so you know when all our content is out. Because to be honest, I only ever put anything on there when the content's out. So yeah, that's the only activity that we have on social media. So keep your eye on our socials to see if any videos/podcasts are out. Right then, I think I'm going to go to bed. In all honesty, I might have to watch Married at First Sight, in fairness, because that's what a program. But anyway, let's go. Thank you to those that have joined us live. If you haven't made it to Belgium yet, I hope you have a safe trip, and all the Villa fans that are there as well have a brilliant time.